What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul. I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term foreign resident. I've been in Japan for 19 years, and today I'm going to be addressing the age-old question, as a foreigner, can you fit in and be accepted in Japanese society? I'm going to approach this topic on two levels. One, as a foreign resident, can you fit in and be accepted? And also, if you actually become Japanese, take the citizenship, become naturalized, and have the passport, can you be accepted as being really Japanese in that case? So without any other preamble, let's get right into the first one. Now, the too long didn't read answer for can you be accepted in Japanese society as a foreigner is yes and no. Okay, that sounds like a cop-out, so let me explain. Really what it comes down to is, if you're thinking about the random stranger on the street, just someone that you don't know, the shopkeeper, the store clerk, whoever it is, the person walking their dog, they're going to look at you. If you're visibly foreign, not looking like a Japanese person like me, so you're white, black, Hispanic, that sort of thing, the immediate assumption the stranger on the street is going to have is that you are a tourist. Or if you are dressed maybe in a suit and look like you might be here on business, or maybe are a temporary resident, they might think that. But they're not going to assume that you live here or that you've been here 19 years like myself. And let's be fair, that is a perfectly ordinary reaction or an assumption, because the truth of the matter is most of the foreigners in Japan are tourists these days, and most residents in Japan are only here for a short period of time. So you can't really fault anyone for assuming that the white guy is not a resident, because 99% of the time that's actually going to be correct. So yeah, if you're visibly foreign, people that don't know you aren't going to think you are part of the society. They're not going to assume you know Japanese. They're not going to think you know how to act in the culture. But here's the thing. Amongst the people that know you, your community, your neighbors, your groups, your place of work, the people who know you are going to accept you and make you a part of that community or group. In fact, this touches directly on one of the major pieces of advice that I always give to anyone who wants to live in Japan or wants to know how to fit in and forge a life in this country. And that is, join groups. Join something like a traditional Japanese art like flower arranging or calligraphy, or join a martial arts dojo, or join a cycling group or a running group. I used to play basketball with a group of guys every Tuesday and Thursday at a local gym, and when you put in the time and the effort, you show up, you come to the meetings, you participate, you are going to become a part of that group. Japan is, it's not a stereotype, Japan is a very group-oriented society, and if you're putting in the effort, even if you don't speak a lot of Japanese, you are going to be part of that group. It's never going to be the case that the group is going to say, okay, we're having a barbecue this weekend. Should we invite the foreigner? Nah, he's not really a part of the group. That's not going to happen. They will invite you. You are going to become an absolute part of that group, and you will be included in everything they do, and that group will look out for you in many ways. It was one of the early groups that I joined where they found my first car. I need to get a car. I've been using the train. It's not very convenient out here in the countryside. And they're like, oh, well, I know someone who's selling a car. We can do this. And they set me up with my first car. Groups I joined, the aforementioned basketball group. I was a member of a martial arts dojo. I also joined a studio and learned shamisen, the 3-stringed Japanese guitar-like instrument. And I just became another one of the students in that studio. Took part in the concerts, etc. And yeah, we all look out for each other. You will be accepted in that way. Now let's get into the thornier issue about whether or not you can be accepted as a naturalized citizen. You have the Japanese passport. Now, if you've gone through the process of actually becoming naturalized. You become a citizen. Things like the stranger on the street not believing you're a citizen, or never assuming in their wildest dreams that you'd be a citizen, those kinds of things aren't going to bother you. You're not going to care what the person on the street, whether they believe you're Japanese or not. So if you've gone through the citizenship route, what does that actually do for you? Well, the most important thing I feel is that if you become a citizen, you will absolutely be accepted as Japanese when it comes to officialdom. So going through immigration at the airport, dealing with bureaucracies, if you ever had an issue where you had to get police involved, etc., you're going to be treated with all the rights and privileges of a Japanese person, because once you have that official document, Japan is a rules and regulation and a law-abiding society. So when you're Japanese in the eyes of the law, and you'll be treated as such. And of course, when it comes to your neighbors and friends and family in Japan, yeah, you're going to be Japanese to them. They might not see you as, born and bred Japanese, because you're not, but they'll accept that you are a Japanese citizen, and no one's going to tell you to your face, you're not a real citizen, you're not a real Japanese. Even if you have some people in your life who think that, Japanese don't confront others in that way. I mean, Americans, I get the feeling that you'll run into the occasional American who might be like, go back to your country, or why is your English so bad, or whatever. In Japan, no one's confronting anyone about stuff like that. So for all intents and purposes, in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of people who know you, you are going to be Japanese. Now, I do have to bring up there are exceptions. When it comes to private businesses and organizations, you can sometimes still be discriminated against in Japan. I'll give you two examples that are pretty famous. The first is there was a lawsuit brought against a hot springs onsen in Hokkaido by an American who became a naturalized Japanese. This onsen had a no foreigners rule, and he looked not Japanese, he was a white guy, so they turned him away. And the real sticker of the story is that he was there with his family, Japanese wife, 2 daughters, and this hot springs was all set to let one daughter in and refuse the other daughter, because one daughter looked Japanese and one daughter did not. And so, I mean, now you're talking about an actual born, raised Japanese citizen who was going to be turned away because they didn't look Japanese enough. And they won the lawsuit, as they should have, because that's just absolutely ridiculous. But it is still the case where some businesses might have a no foreigners, and they're not going to be impressed even if you haul out your passport and say, well, but look, I'm Japanese. They might still turn you away. Now, the other famous example is the Sumo Association in Japan created this rule, which is a sumo stable can only have one foreign-born wrestler in the stable. So foreign-born, that means if you have 2 Mongolian wrestlers, even if they have taken Japanese citizenship, only one of them can be a member of a single stable, in sumo. So it's like, I guess, trying to keep sumo as Japanese as possible. And I mean, it's their organization, their rules, they get to do that, and there's not much anyone can say or do against it. I suppose possibly bring a lawsuit, I don't know. I'm not even sure if this rule still exists. I know that they put it into effect a few years ago, but it's another example of an official organization discriminating. And can you imagine if Major League Baseball did that and said, okay, you've got Ohtani on the Dodgers, you may not have any other foreign-born players on the Dodgers. So no one from the Dominican Republic, no one from Mexico, no other Japanese players, you can only have one. I mean, it sounds pretty ridiculous, but that's what the Sumo Association has done. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be instances where you are maybe not going to be treated as Japanese even if you've got the passport. And of course, the stranger on the street is not going to assume you're Japanese. They'll probably assume you are, a tourist. So you'll get the English menu handed to you. You'll get broken English spoken to you, or really good English spoken to you, just because they're not going to assume you know Japanese. But that's ultimately the thing you have to be able to make peace with. If that sort of stranger on the street not believing you belong in the community. If that sort of thing bothers you, it's going to be very difficult to live in Japan. If you just let that roll off your back and not something that you worry about, then you can absolutely live here and have a great time. Because you know, at the end of the day, the people who know you, your neighbors, your community, your groups, your family, they accept you as a part of their community and group. So, isn't that really, in the end, what matters? All right, thank you so much for watching this particular video. Hope it was illuminating. Please ask questions. I have gotten into more philosophical discussions with my students about who is Japanese or what it means to be Japanese. Are we talking about blood? Are we talking about place of birth? Are we talking about language ability? Are we talking about acculturation or amount of time spent in a country? Or is it just the passport that you need to be Japanese? And if you wanted to know the kinds of ideas that came out of those discussions, I could make a video about that. Comment below if you're interested in a deeper discussion on what real Japanese people think it means to be Japanese. So yeah, if you want to hear that, let me know. Comment below. And if you want to learn more about living in Japan as a long-term foreign resident, of course check out other videos on my channel, but I also have a podcast where I have guests who talk about their experience. They are all people who have chosen to live in Japan for the long term. They all come from a variety of different countries. So far I've interviewed Chinese, someone from Hong Kong, someone from the US, someone from Nigeria, and actually I'm about to drop an episode. I'm in the middle of the editing process. My latest guest is from Taiwan, and I also have a guest from the UK that I will be getting together with soon, and it's basically just them telling their stories about why they came to Japan in the first place and why they decided to make this their forever home. The podcast is called The Journal of Japan Journeys, and I will link that below. I want to give a quick thank you and shout out to all my new subscribers. The past couple weeks, something about my past few videos hit and I got a lot of new subscribers. Welcome to the channel. I invite you to check out all my other content and the podcast. And of course, thank you to those of you who've been subscribed for a long time. I really, really appreciate you. Thanks for watching this particular video, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.